Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The Kushites' world, their entire history, culture, heritage, traditions are built around their supreme God and their spirituality, which was truly divine. The earliest evidence we have found on Kushite spirituality is at Adam's calendar circle in southern Africa. This circle was built between 75,000 years ago and 160,000 years ago, again in southern Africa. It is a monolith or a megalith structure that is perfectly aligned with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. Africans, or Alkebalans, as they originally called themselves, erected the megalith Adam's calendar at Mpumalanga, South Africa, over 75,000 years ago to study the Orion star systems and Earth weather patterns. Then came Napata in northern Africa, virtually doing the same by studying the Orion constellations. So the North Africans, or the Kushites, they erected Napata around 10,000 years ago in Nubia, or Kush. And these megalith structures were aligned with the Orion constellations. And then to top it off, the three pyramids at Giza in Egypt was a continuation from Napata, a continuation from Adam's calendar. These pyramids also are aligned with the brightest stars in the Orion constellation. And finally, the Great Sphinx was built about 12,500 years ago. It too is aligned toward the Orion constellation belt. So the Orion constellation is where the Kushite believe their supreme God lived. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So looking beyond Adam's calendar, by about 30,000 BC, the Africans, or the Kushites, had mastered the study of the Orion star systems, and this was in full display at Napata. They named the Sirius star, one of the brightest stars in the skies, a god in the heavens. And this is easily the first reference seen on Earth where God was named to be living in the universe, in the sky, in the heavens. And this is where I believe the Kushites believe that their supreme God revealed himself to them at least between 30,000 and 100,000 years ago. So here you might say the early beginnings of God worship began among the Kushites in Africa. And the Kushites thereafter, about 100,000 years over that span of time, the Africans have started building monuments, or megalith, or monolith, or edifices. It begins with Adam's calendar over 70,000 years ago, building these extraordinary structures in favor of the God, in favor of their spirituality. So Adam's calendar over 70,000 years ago, then came Napata, and thereafter came the pyramids of Giza, the pyramids of Napata, or Meroe, among the Kushites. So all these edifices, all these engineered structures were built in favor of the gods, in honor of their supreme God. One of the most common elements of the Adam's calendar megalith, the Napata megalith, the pyramids of Giza and the pyramids of Napata and Meroe, are the stones that they use to build these structures. These stones have very common chemical structures and crystalline structures having to do with calcium, sodium, and other minerals And what's common among these minerals are the electromagnetic nature of all these minerals. And even the pyramids that were built from blocks of concrete were built with certain special type of chemical structures. And it's apparent, at least to me, being someone who has numerous patents in physics and technology, I see where the Kushites were harnessing the ultraviolet rays from the sun, and they were also likely harnessing the magnetic fields from the Earth's core. And all this has to do with, I believe, their religion. This is the way they worship their supreme God in the Orient system, in heaven. So let's jump ahead a little bit from Adam's calendar, Napata, the pyramids of Giza, the Great Sphinx. Let's come back a little south to Nubia, or Kush, or Ethiopia, or Sudan. Now let's talk about Napata. Napata is the culmination of the Kushite religion, which clearly started in southern Africa at Adam's calendar, probably even before that. So Napata was the holy, sacred city of the Kushites and of the Egyptians. Napata was a spiritual city. Napata was a holy city. Napata was renamed Jebel Barkal, we understand, by the Arabs after they invaded, after Christ was born. But Napata has 15 temples that are still there without roofs, with numerous chapels, 3 massive palaces, a necropolis of dozens of beautiful, elegant pyramids not far away. And not far from here, you will find the Abu Simbel temple that they built for the supreme god Amun. They call their god, supreme god Amun, as the Jews call their supreme god Yahweh. So Abu Simbel temple was built for their supreme god called Amun. Of course, Abu Simbel temple was removed from Nubia. I think it now resides in Egypt, of course, modern day Egypt. So Napata was the holy sacred city of the Kushites. Magnificent monuments and edifices, vast temples, steles, obelisks, pyramids, all constructed in honor of their supreme god. And later, they also constructed a city called Meroe, which became the intellectual capital of the Kushite Empire, including Egypt. So Napata was the holy city of the Kushites and the Egyptians. One important point to note among all these other critically important points is that all pharaohs of Kush and all pharaohs of Egypt were crowned at Napata, at the holy sacred city, presided over by the priests of Kush. All pharaohs, except the Hyksos and the Greeks, who were not true pharaohs because they were not pharaohs of the tradition of Adam's calendar, of Napata, of the Pyramid of Giza, and all the other pyramids that were built in honor of the gods. All of African history, all of Alkebulan history, all of human history, all of world history leads back to Napata, the holy sacred place of the Kushites and the Egyptians. All of history. Let's reflect briefly on what that means. At Adam's calendar, we see and learn how the Kushites invented physics, mathematics, and chemistry, and use these mathematical formulas to track and study the Orion constellation. In the Orion constellation, that's where they're declared 3 of their main gods. They call the Sirius star a god, also Osiris and Isis, relating to the Orion constellation. The Orion constellation is over 1,300 light years away from Earth. They're over 6 million miles in 1 light year. And they were able to align the Adam calendar, megalith and monolith with the stars in the Orion system and track the weather systems over Africa. The early Kushites, also in southern Africa, they were able to select stones to build their megalith, stones like dolomites and hornfels that have certain crystalline components with calcium and sodium and other minerals that could harness the energy from the core of the earth. And somehow, it seems, they were able to also harness the ultraviolet rays from the sun to those stones and created electromagnetism. As to the free energy that they were harnessing there, we have no idea what they were doing with it. Their discoveries in physics, in mathematics, calculus, algebra, their discoveries in chemistry leading to their engineering feats at Adam's calendar, and of course, their extraordinary discovery in astronomy. They brought that knowledge to Napata. So they brought it from southern Africa to North Africa. And at Napata, they repeated exactly what happened at Adam's calendar. Adam's calendar circle was built over 75,000 years ago. Napata was built over 10,000 years ago. Massive difference in terms of years. Same knowledge. Studying the same star systems, including the Ursa Majoris and the Canis Major constellations, and other constellations as well. The knowledge of Napata was also brought to Giza. They used that knowledge to build the pyramids at Giza. Now, what is extraordinary about the pyramids of Giza is that they did not have the dolomite and hornfels stones. So what did the Kushites did? They invented cement with similar chemical structures as the dolomites and the hornfels at Adam's calendar. So these inventions, these cement blocks the Kushites invented to build the pyramids at Giza had iron oxides, had concentration of sodium from the ore called scorodite, made from potassium, iron, calcium, alkaline, magnesium, and aluminum. So these are some of the chemistry that the Kushites brought to the pyramids of Giza about 5,000 years ago. 5,000 years ago. They were able to bind limestone with silicon dioxide, the building block of quartz, a calcium and magnesium rich type of silicate material. You can see the Kushites were not only chemists and physicists, they invented nanotechnologies of electrostatic and electromagnetic nature in their temples, in their funerary chapels, pyramids, their megalith monuments, edifices, as part of their divinity and spirituality. They were using the electromagnetic force from these stars, and they were using the electromagnetic force from the Earth's core to communicate with their God. And this is how spiritual and divine the Kushites were, that they embark upon the elaborate study of the natural world, the universal world, which include the Orion system and other constellation. The Napatan and Meroe pyramids were made from certain added geopolymer alkaline feldspars of aluminum tectosilicate materials containing sodium, calcium, potassium, barium. And the Kushites selected from hundreds of different type of stones or materials. They selected granite and sandstone that they used to build most of the pyramids in Napata and Meroe. Now, what is key about the chemical structures of sandstone, and especially granite, is the veins of thorium and uranium, potassium, calcium, iron, sodium that are known to be in these stones. And these are what they use to build their temples, pyramids, for their divine worship and in honor of their supreme god, Amun. At Napata, though, the Kushites enhanced their inventions in physics and chemistry by using these sandstones and these granite to build more pyramids, their monolith monuments. Sandstones, and especially granite, again, are known to modern geological and earth science, as well as modern chemistry, to have these veins of uranium and thorium. What is so important about thorium and uranium, I think you all can guess. These are two of the most powerful chemicals in the entire universe and Earth. And what could be more electromagnetic? What could have more electrostatic nature? But especially the electromagnetic nature of these stones, the energy that they can absorb from the earth and from the universe. So you see, the Kushites were using the force from the earth, the core of the earth, and they were also harnessing the electromagnetic force from the universe, from the star system, the constellations, especially the Orion constellation. And in that heaven, up there, that's where the Kushite believe their supreme god, Amun, that they worship and honor, live. All these monuments, edifices, the pyramids, their temples were built in honor of their supreme god. Now, thorium and uranium, as you all probably guess, are leftovers from past supernova activity, dying stars that exploded. So that's some of the residue, uranium, thorium, and this is being mentioned because the Betelgeuse star in the Orion system, the Kushite had been observing that star as well, and probably wondering if it was a dying star that would imminently unleash hell on Earth. The question is, were the Kushite thinking that the Betelgeuse star, if it exploded, if it became a supernova, would that be a representation of hell, as they think of their supreme god as living in the heaven as well? That is something to be looked into in the future as to what the Kushites actually thought. At Napata, at the mountain of God, renamed by the Arabs to Jebel Barkal, what coalesced from Adam's calendar, from Naphtali, from Egypt, or from the pyramids of Giza, from the Great Sphinx. What we have at Napata was the culmination of African culture, Kushite culture, Egyptian culture. So Napata was the emergence of a culture of royals, the emergence of a culture of royals. The Napata complex had 15 temples with chapels and 3 massive palaces, and nearby the necropolis of dozens of beautiful, elegant pyramids built by the Kushites. Napata was the holy, sacred place of the Kushites and the Egyptians. And at Napata, kings and pharaohs were crowned. So let's recap. Adam's calendar, 75,000 years ago. Napata, 10,000 years ago. The Pyramid of Giza, about 5,000 years ago. The Great Sphinx, about 12,000 years ago. Cusco, where kingship, royalty, and pharaoh culture was discovered. In Nubia, about 7,000 years ago. Taseti Empire, between 15,000 and 5,000 years ago, with their capital at Kerma. And then, of course, there is Kush. Kush, or the Kushites, grew out of the Taseti Empire and created the Kushite Empire, which included Egypt. So Napata, before it was destroyed by the Romans, was the holy sacred place, the holy coalescence of culture and religion, and the great God, supreme God, that revealed himself to the Africans at Adam's calendar over 75,000 years ago. At Napata, what we found there was divine kingship, divine worship, a divine priesthood, a divine pharaohship, dynastic rule, the pillars of moral ethics. The pillars of moral ethics can be described another way, and that is the Kushites, the culture of royals, from Cusco to Taseti, to Kush, to Egypt. And yes, they were destroyed. They were ultimately destroyed. The culture was destroyed. Their buildings and temples were destroyed. Their royal monuments and edifices were destroyed. That you can conquer royals, but not their royalty. Royalty is the God-based spirituality dignified by moral ethics. Unfortunately, that's what the world lacks today.
I am Usia, also called Osiris. I am the Taseti Lord of the Underworld, Judge of the Dead and Resurrection, brother to Seth, husband to Ist, and father to Heru. We as a family dynasty of Taseti were entrusted with bringing sacred divinity and spirituality to the world.